ॐ नमः श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे. Welcome to Karma Yoga. In the previous session, we saw the first chapter, Karma and its effect on character. Today, we'll see the second chapter, Each is great in his own place. Swamiji starts the lecture by discussing the three gunas of Prakriti, that is, qualities of nature, that are described in Sankhya philosophy, namely Sattva, that is serenity or peace, Rajas, that is activity, and Tamas, inertness. He points out that Karma Yoga has to deal with these three attributes which are characteristic of all nature, activity, inertness, and equilibrium between these two, that is the characteristic of Sattva, which is the balance between the inertness and activity, Tamas and Rajas. So Karma Yoga has to take into consideration these three. Then he says duty and morality has gradations based on one's state of life and surrounding circumstances. For example, resist no evil is applicable only for highest sattvika people and is counterproductive for huge section of humanity. Also, it can be a duty in certain circumstances to resist evil. He says our first duty is not to hate ourselves, because to advance we must have faith in ourselves first and then in God. He who has no faith in himself can never have faith in God. Therefore, the only alternative remaining to us is to recognize that duty and morality vary under different circumstances. Not that the man who resists evil is doing what is always and is itself wrong, but that in the different circumstances in which he is placed, it may become even his duty to resist evil. In this connection, Swamiji gives the example of Arjuna in Gita. At the beginning of the Gita, Arjuna says that he will not fight and instead he will renounce everything and go to the forest instead of killing his relatives. So here it may seem that Arjuna is acting from the sattvic point of view, but in fact it is tamasic point of view because he got confused due to his attachment to relatives. And Krishna's advice was not that, you go and renounce everything. Krishna advised him to fight, that is, resist the evil. So this is a very important point that Swamiji highlights. Under circumstances and according to the temperaments, the duty and morality vary. Karma Yogi understand the highest ideal of non-resistance and also understand that resisting evil is a step towards that ideal. The highest type of renunciations see non-resistance, but to come to that point, the aspirant has to pass through steps where resistance of evil is necessary to develop the inner strength and character. In order to reach the highest level of peace and serenity, man must pass through activity and struggle. Swamiji says man must be active in order to pass through activity to perfect calmness. In this connection, Swamiji gives one incident which happened during his wandering life in India. One dull and stupid tamasic person asked Swamiji, what is the way to mukti, the final liberation from transmigration? Now, Swamiji obviously understood the intensely inert mental attitude of that person and asked him if he can lie. The man was surprised, but Swamiji knew that if this person can at least lie or do some crime, there will be some activity in him. Then he will further evolve into a moral being, and then afterwards the spiritual evolution is far away. So outwardly a person may be sitting quietly, but he may be full of inertia. So activity and struggle makes the character, and then in a highest level, the outer activity falls away. So this explains the point Swamiji made, that the duty and morality and depends on the station of life and the temperament of the person. He says, so fulfill your desire for power and everything else, and after you have fulfilled the desire, will come the time when you will know that they are all very little things. But until you have fulfilled this desire, until you have passed through that activity, it is impossible for you to come to the state of calmness, serenity, and self-surrender. These ideas of serenity and renunciation have been preached for thousands of years. Everybody has heard of them from childhood, and yet we see very few in the world who have really reached that stage. I do not know if I have seen 20% in my life who are really calm, non-resisting, and I have traveled over half the world. So Swamiji highlights that how difficult it is to find a truly sattvic person. So it is important that every man take up his own ideal rather than copying another's ideal and strive for his own ideal. Swamiji says, unity in variety is the plan of creation. However, men and women may vary individually. There is unity in the background. The different individual characters and classes of men and women are natural variations in creation. Hence, we ought not to judge them by the same standard or put the same ideal before them. Such a course creates only an unnatural struggle, and the result is that man begins to hate himself and is hindered from becoming religious and good. Our duty is to encourage everyone in his struggle to live up to his own highest ideal and strive at the same time to make the ideal as near as possible to the truth. Hindu scriptures understood the variations in temperaments and capacities and hence developed a graded approach for all. That is the famous Varnashrama system, the Varna and 4 Varnas and 4 Ashramas. Swamiji narrates the various social, moral, scriptural duties of an ideal householder as described in Mahanirvana Tantra. It is quite difficult to be strictly moral householder. There are various duties. Swamiji gives quite an exhaustive description. Essence of all teachings of Sanatana Dharma is the condemnation of all weakness. Swamiji says one idea comes out of all this, the condemnation of all weakness. This is a particular idea in all our teachings which I like, either in philosophy or in religion or in work. If you read the Vedas, you will find this word always repeated, fearlessness, fear nothing. Fear is a sign of weakness. A man must go about his duties without taking notice of the sneers and ridicule of the world. Further, Swamiji continues and says, if a man retires from the world to worship God, he must not think that those who live in the world and work for the good of the world are not worshipping God. Neither must those who live in the world for wife and children think that those who give up world are low vagabonds. Each is great in his own place. This thought I will illustrate by a story. Then Swamiji narrates a story wherein a monk's renunciation is clearly shown. When a princess wants to marry the monk, he outrightly rejects her proposal, despite the king's offer to give the kingdom, etc. And the self-sacrifice of a family of birds who sacrifice themselves to appease the hunger of guests. In this story, the monk is shown to be right in his own position, and householder who sacrifices for the guests is shown to be the right in his position. Then Swamiji says, if you want to be a householder, hold your life a sacrifice for the welfare of others. And if you choose the life of renunciation, do not even look at beauty and money and power. Each is great in his own place, but the duty of the one is not the duty of the other. So in this brief chapter, each is great in his own place. Swamiji says that depending on the temperament and evolution of the soul, the duties and morality for that stage are different, and hence we should not judge everyone by the same standard. Each is great in his own position if he does the duty according to best of his ability and selflessly. Next, Swamiji will take up the chapter, The Secret of Work. Om Tat Sat.